in repentance. You need to come out in truth. And that's why you have to make a change in your core, your heart of who you are. And then you have to prove that. And in that sense, you will become more mature and you will become the Homo sapiens that we claim we are. But we are not even living or acting or have never done. Some of us have, and they're lucky. But we're talking about generations of people, not just one or two or three out of a generation. I'm talking whole people, a bunch of generations, all of a sudden becoming sapient, becoming wisdom, living life like that. You know how awesome the world would be if everyone lived according to what they titled themselves, what science has already titled us, Homo sapiens. See, I don't think we're human beings. That's why I think that we have always we're still developing. We are still fetal in both our physical and spiritual sense. And in that sense, we are human becomings. So we're not doing anything. You're being done. And whenever you try to put your own understanding on what you think is being done is when you screw things up, because it's treacherous right now, that balance. You have to have faith in that. And that's why I love the Bible, not because church or because of anything like that, because it really is the truth. And you can place something that is always going to be greater outside of yourself, so that you could live in humility. So I could become the greatest person on this world, in this earth, or on the earth in this world. And I will never have such a pride that I seal my own self and then I have a great fall, right? Pride goes before a fall. No, as long as I keep my heart and my faith in this, I will have the nature of responsibility to keep myself on that standard, knowing that there is something even greater outside of me that allowed that. And so I'll always be in thankfulness no matter how great you can become. Does that make sense? Because if you lean on your own understandings, you will fall, and it's already been here. That's what the great fall was, right? And that's why I love this book. All the other ones, they teach you about yourself, but they don't teach you that there is always going to be something greater than you outside yourself. And the only reason that you are where you are is because, one, you were allowed it through what heaven permitted, and two, because of however you think. Your greatest thinking got you to the place that you are at right now, right? And so when you have your greatest thinking, something outside of yourself, then, and it will always be greater than you, then you will always grow. And in that growth and in that blessing, you can become an immortal being. You won't die. You'll only become greater and greater and greater. And that's why right now is the time that we can be able to reap these, because at the closing of this covenant, the first fruits are going to be awakened. And you'll see people being, or who have this approval, becoming more than people. They're going to become Homo sapiens, I believe. Okay? So the ninth part is, the sign of the Son of Man will show, the final trumpet will sound, the darkened hearts will hear in blindness and be terrified, the righteous hearts will see in knowing and tremble, all will mourn. So the sign of the Son of Man, okay, so Matthew 24 says, and then at last the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So all the peoples of the earth, there will be deep mourning. So that's why it said, righteous hearts will see in knowing and tremble. That's why those, when it came to Jonah, again, the vine that grew over him because the sun was scorching him, he was happy, and then God caused a parasite to wither that vine, and then he got mad and wanted to kill himself. And God asked him, like, do you have a right to be angry that the vine withered? And Jonah was like, yes. In that sense, you have to think of the opposite. Does he have a right to be happy? No, he didn't either. So that's why in everything, whether it's good for you or bad for you, yeah, you could be happy, you could be dismayed, but both should be looked at and considered, in all honesty, as a blessing that it happened. That's why when all is good, 'tis thanks to thee, but when all is bad, 'tis also thanks to thee, because you don't know the bigger picture that God has in store for you. You are so aware of what is happening right now, and some things are really big and it is hard, but he won't never give you something that you cannot take yourself out of. And I say that, and then there's suicide, right? And suicide is like, well, then how come these people did that if they couldn't, if he gave them something that they couldn't take themselves out of it, but they took themselves out of, that means that there was no other way. In suicide, I feel like they didn't give it a chance to work. It was, they jumped, not jumped, they didn't give themselves enough time to have grace in it or react in it. And I know what for me that is. It's like an impatience almost, right? Like, I know that whenever things are going good in my life, I feel good, I feel empowered, but then whenever one obstacle pushes me back, sometimes I'll be like, "Ugh," and I'll get mad. But if it's a great obstacle, so I'm like, "Ugh," and then I really want to kill myself. I've gotten really close sometimes, and I mean, I've just, I guess, personal, which when I was like 6, I wanted to kill myself, so I drank Drano, and thank you God I didn't die. He had a bigger purpose for me, but I know what it is to want to do it and actually do it. And believe me, I will always remember how that felt. It was terrible, but in the end, like, I got to that point where I was just like, I poured into glass, and at a young age, and so, I feel like if it did kill me, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have experienced all these other things. But in that time, wherever I was in my maturity or immaturity as a child or as a person, it was as real as I thought it could ever get. And that's why I feel like with suicide, it's like they didn't give it a chance to let it comprehend. It was like something happened, and then it was like the very next time they just spiraled down instead of being still and being true to their emotions, but not believing the lie that that's all there was. We'll go on another subject on that. I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but that's what it means, right? Where you, everything is a blessing, even in what you think might and perceive as bad or sucks or something like that. It is a blessing, and you should always remain in thanksgiving for it and gratitude. The 10th part, all the alignments, awakenings, and new thoughts, new minds have still to labor from being sucked into the confusions. The more we go on without cognition in thought, the harder to see difference in truth and lie. And eventually, at the end, impossible to realize the truth. So, what this means is like with no ability to reason, no ability to sense, no ability to grow in the sure sign of completion. So, ability to reason is reasonability, right? The ability to sense is sensibility. The ability to grow still is growability, pretty much, right? It's a sure sign of completion. If you don't have those things and you think that you're complete, then you are an incomplete truth, right? To be completed as incomplete with incompetency, there is no more work that can be done in your life, and you've completely stunted yourself. And in that stunted, if you remain like that, you'll be cut off. It's just like when puppies, when people want to cut their tails off, what do? They bind the tail as the puppy, and then they constrict the flow, and therefore not only is that other part not getting nourishment, but it breaks off, it falls off, it gets cut off, and that's how you get like the Doberman pinchers with the little stub tails and stuff like that. That's what they do. And so in that sense, if you're completed as incomplete with incompetencies, but think that you are competent in your maturity, but you've only done half of it, which is you've become successful in the world in order to succeed, but you haven't learned the virtualization of your true self, your spirit, and you've forgotten and neglected that, then it will die. There's no circulation in your entirety, your soulness, your integralness, and you will be cut off, pretty much, right? There's no more use. You was only a fig tree in full bloom, but when you got close, there was no fruits, right? So 11, there are only 2 things that you can hope for once this happens, and these are already in slow disappearance as night is upon the threshold. Faith, having ability to know what you cannot see. If the leap is taken, landing on the cornerstone to be broken to pieces. The cornerstone and the broken to pieces is Matthew 21:44. He who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, but he on whom it falls will be crushed. And so even in this sense, if you when things are going crazy and then realize that you haven't lived fully. You've been only half living, which is external. You haven't gone inside, and there's an awakening. There's a saving place, but it's getting more treacherous. If you, even in that sense, if you take that leap of faith, it will be even more tormenting almost for you. But it's better that you do that than for the truth to finalize you and that you are completely crushed by it, which means that there's no more for you. At least with the pieces, you can salvage the good parts and put it together, and that's what you call salvation. Or truth, which is the second one. But living in the light of the beast for so long, how can one change his thoughts? And so that is the patterning of the beast getting to you. And in that sense, that's where you get these people who you can't teach old dogs new tricks kind of thing, right? They have become calcified in the loops of how their brain and synapses work. And therefore, in that programming, the more that they generate that programming into their nature, the harder it is to cut away your nature. And so that's what it means. And then without ability to change from living a lie to a life of truth, what reasons does heaven's angels have to stay? So without the changeability, the reasonability, any ability in order for you to live a life of truth, for any type of salvation, heaven will, there's no longer will they waste any time on you, and that's just going to be between you and God, which is, I'm not going to say is going to be your finality, but it will be fatality. Yeah, there is no reason if there is no reasonability, right? So 13, slowly as darkness comes with the darkness of the sun and moon and the stars, so will the mind grow dark. The heart will grow dark, for darkness is in each one, and how great that darkness is. So for the darkness, Matthew 24 through 29, it says, or 24:29, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. So, as you know, it's all the lights, external and internal, are going to be darkened and darkened and darkened, right? Matthew 6:23 says, But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? And that's what it means. If what you see, your perceptibility, has no longer the ability to perceive, to grow, to your sensibilities, which in its natural sense are always supposed to grow. Your ear, your eye, your nose, your mouth, your touch, it will never be filled. That means that you are capable of great things, and it's always going to be expanding. But if there's no ability for it to expand, and you sealed a ceiling on top of that, then you just broke your own nature, pretty much. And then if the eyes are the window to your souls, and you have a cap on that, and your soul is slowly getting darker and darker, not evil, but just not able, no longer able to grow, then how great that darkness is, because that just shows that you won't be able to, there's nothing salvageable anymore. No salvation is going to be able to get you out of that. And once the covenant of love to 1,000 generations ends, that's why you're not going to be under the mercy that this covenant has put us under at this time. But you will just be between you and God. Yeah, but I always like to remind everyone too, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the King of Kings, he's always had and always will have compassion, and God's mercy goes down even to the depths of the greatest hells. I have been blessed to know the final revelation of God, but it's not my time to tell you. But that's why I have hope for everybody. And so I'm going to stop there, and then I'll go on to finish the next parts of it. So, yeah. Pretty intense, huh? But that's the times that we live in. And so I just want everyone to get out of that cognitive dissonance, because I know that we can change the world for the better and become true Homo sapiens in wisdom. So, Thank you, and aloha, namaste. Now I'ma go.